Hello YouTube, Jedi here. Hey guys, in today's video I want to talk about the more notable characters in the epic and rare category. I'm going to talk about my favorite ones, and as we get to them, there's a few that I think are just must build, that I think when you get them, you're going to need them at some point in the game no matter what, and you should just build them up and use them because they're going to be game changers for you. So let's get into it. Guys, check out the links in the description. A lot of good stuff down there. I really appreciate any support I can get, especially on my Amazon link. Helps my wife out. She's selling a book that she just released. Thank you for your time. And here we are. So we're going to start with the fire category. As I go through these, if I miss any of your favorite champions, just remember I haven't tried everyone, but please put it in the comments and let me know so I can try these guys out. The first one is going to be Horus here. The fire tank, of course, everyone gets him for free. You all know him. Highly recommend building him and using him. We get that HP aura, and on our ultimate, he's very notable, getting this damage reduction for 5 seconds and a hit recovery. Now, real quick with my Horus, I did want to show you guys a artifact I'm using on him that seems to be working out super amazing, and that is this Mask of the Lark. For each buff he has, he gets a damage reduction, and this stacks up to 5 times. When you have it fully leveled, it's a 3% one. For the damage reduction, that's like up to 15% damage reduction, so he works amazing with that thing. And moving on, the next champion I'm going to say that's super notable in here, and this one I will say is a must build in my opinion, and that is Dane. Unless you just have all the good legendaries in the game, this is someone who you're gonna need for something. Trust me, in this game, like if you build him, you're not gonna regret it. He was one of my first champions in season 0. I'm already building him in season 1, and the reason being is going to be his ultimate. We'll go through in City of Trials battles. He gets a 30% attack for your team. This is right now the fire poison dungeon and the final area that you're gonna get to, or that you can get to right now. It's not the final area, but the one that you can get to right now. That's a good attack that you're getting in there. Now, his passive here, this is something that I really love with Dane, is when he deals damage and they have less than 50%, it recharges his ultimate by 15%. This is freaking amazing because you can start cycling that ultimate when the bosses get down, and his ultimate is why he's so good. His A2 here, he has the chance of fear. This is good for your waves. It is AoE, so that's pretty good if you got the accuracy on him, and a healing prohibition. To me, the A2s with the healing prohibitions, they're not super consistent. It does have a good use in it, but it's not the greatest skill to have. But the fear works out pretty good whenever you're trying to get through waves. And of course, his main thing is the A3, which is dispelling 2 buffs. And like I said, guys, on bosses, you get that passive going where their health is down. He keeps recharging his ultimate, and he just starts cycling this insanely fast. There's sometimes in boss fights where you can use it 2 times before they can recharge their bar, and you're making sure that they don't have any buffs on them at all. There is a rare artifact that I want to show real quick with Dane that I used during season 0 that he actually pairs really good with. Let's see here. I believe we're going to be the dancing gyro right here on Dane is amazing. So with this one, he gains extra attack speed. So if you guys have Dane and you're looking for an artifact, I recommend this one, because when you're on those boss battles, you get less than half health, you get extra attack speed, which means you're going to proc that passive more often because you're dealing damage to someone with less than 50% HP, and then you're going to recharge your ultimate a lot faster. So Dane with that dancing gyro is insane. Highly recommend building that. To me, Dane is a must build character. Now, as far as the fire champions go, there's no one in here that I would say is absolutely must build. There are some good looking champions to use, but for champions that must build, definitely Horus and Dane. To me, there are no like super notable rares. The only one who's really maybe worth mentioning is Livia here. You have a single target where you could dispel 1 buff. It's a pretty niche use, but I've seen people use her for some good stuff. The rest in here, honestly, there's no one that I would just absolutely try to build up unless you're just trying to use them to fill in a role. Moving on to the Ice champions. The Ice has a lot of good champions. but we're just going to go through a few. My personal favorites in here is going to be starting with Guardrus here. He's really good. So we get a pass or aura on him that gives us a resistance, which is really good. His first one, he gets the 25% chance to immunize an inflicted debuff. So that's also good. And each time he gets the immune, he recharges his ultimate, so he can start cycling his ultimate as well. Which this is nice because it's hard for him to keep debuffs on him. His A2, he gets his attack penalty down. This is good for any boss fight at all. Anytime you have attack penalty 2 up, you're doing yourself a massive favor. His A3, this has a few uses. When I initially started using Guardrus here, I mostly used him in PvE because of the A3 here. He's actually very good in PvP from this. But in PvE, I was underrating his use in the boss fights. I mostly thought that he was great for the waves. It wasn't that great in the bosses until I started replacing him, and I realized this recharge speed penalty works really well on the bosses. If you were trying to speed tune teams and you don't have enough skill haste, you can bring someone in like Guardrus here with the recharge speed penalty, and you can get your team tuned just right. And then on the waves, you get the added stun and knock up. For those of you who don't know, when you're going through your moves, if it isn't purple, these are like control effects. They don't affect bosses. So when you're reading this kit, his A3, his ultimate, when you get to the boss, the only one that's affecting is that recharge speed penalty. 30% is pretty massive. So if you haven't tried out Guardrus and you have him, highly recommend playing with him. He's a very good character to have. The next one I want to talk about is Voresh. This is a must build. I absolutely think if you get Voresh, you should build him. You're going to have plenty of areas that you need to use him in. He's just absolutely amazing. His passive skill really is one of the highlights of his kit, where he heals the lowest ally by 70% of his attack when dealing damage. It's really good and combined. When you add up his attack, you get tons of attack on him. Especially late game, people are pushing like 5,000-6,000 attack easy on him. Get some good hills. He does 120% damage to enemies 3 times, and he has a chance of dispelling a buff. That's nice. You can kind of help keep buffs off of some people. And then his main attack, this is of course the highlight. This is a full map AoE. He hits everyone on the map, and he does a buff prohibition. For PvP, this can be used to nuke down teams very easily. For PvE, it's not only good to do a ton of damage, you also get some heals off of it thanks to his passive, but if you time it out on some of those bosses that are gaining buffs, like the Ancient Battlefield, you can time this out to where you completely prevent those buffs from landing, and then you don't have to worry about trying to strip them with your debuffer. So you combine him with a good debuffer and make him a damage dealer. Like combine him with someone like Dane. You use him to prevent the first set of buffs, and I mean you're pretty solid to just keep your teams moving along. So Voresh, I would definitely say he's good to use. Now there are other epics in here that are good. I just haven't played a whole lot around with the epics, so definitely know the ones that you guys are using that I'm overlooking here. Now, I don't have time to go over every single champion. Looking some good stuff, but I'm just trying to show off the people who I like the most. In the rare category for Frost, I would say Usha here is a very good option for you, especially if you're first starting out. You need an ice damage. Usha is really good. I used her last season as a damage dealer. I with my Oster in a Frost team because I didn't have other Frost champions. I had used her, used Dorkurats here. When I used them in Vortex, I actually played around with them using the exact same gear on one round as I used on the other for each champion to compare their damage, and Usha was doing this more damage than he was, so she's definitely a damage dealer and worth building if you're looking for that. Now getting into the Necro team here, and champions, so I can't really go too far into how good they are. give my opinions on what I have done. Questa here, I see her a lot in PvP. She's really good for getting into the back line. She has a self heal on here. If you're needing someone in PvP and you want to try her out, she has the Steel Ultimate, which is really great as well. PvP, sometimes it's all about just getting your ultimates off before the enemies do. And it's probably good in PvE. I just haven't used her a whole lot to get into that. But overall, she seems like a really good champion. She's also very, very tanky. Thea here, she's fell off of the wagon in Season 0. I really liked her. She's someone I would have talked about because I used her for the healing prohibition on Grave of Rot. There's now the rare Sigrid and the Poison who completely outshine her. I'm not sure there's much of a use for her anymore. If anyone sells use for her, please let me know. She's a cool design character. I'd like to still play around with her. As you see, I don't really have much of the other epics, so I haven't really played around with them. Reading their kits, I think Zarloth here sounds interesting. We get a fear on here, a recharge speed penalty on the A2, which is talking with Gardrus over there. That's a really good thing to have. And then we get a silence on here. So yeah, he's one that I want to try around and play with, but I'm not too sure about the rest because I just don't have him yet. And then inside of the rares here, the most notable I would say is Megan. This one is really good to build if you don't have any defense up or heals on your Necro team, especially for the Pillar of Trials. You're going to end up needing her. You get the defense up, recovery over time. I'm not a huge fan of recovery over time, but it does work. It's still good heals, and especially if you don't have any healers, you're going to end up needing it. And then she does have a single target heal. And the part of this that most people overlook is recharging the ultimate energy. So she helps cycle some ultimates for whoever she is healing up. And when you have a defense penalty on you, if you cast a skill and someone has a defense, Megan I think is a really good rare, and I think we even underrate her sometimes when we compare her to some of the other ones. Personally, I think you're going to end up needing to build her, especially for Pillar of Trials, so don't overlook her when you're building up some characters. I'm moving over into Radiant. My personal favorite Radiant epic this season right now is Catherine. She is amazing at healing. I just built up a crazy Vortex team using her to heal my team, and I'll show it off later on when I get a chance, but this passive here is one thing that's helping her out in that. So when she 50% of the extra healing turns into a shield. So if you got full health allies, it's still good to use her heal, which is normally you would hold, but for her it's worth using because you get that shield. The A2 here, we get a heal times enlightenment plus a defense. Ultimate here, we get the heal times enlightenment plus a debuff immunity. So Catherine here is really good, super notable, especially if you need a healer. If you pull her, highly recommend. I think for this team, she's one of the you have one of the for Pillar of Trials. Now Radiant, they have some pretty stout characters overall. The other one I'm going to mention here, I haven't used him a whole lot, but my actually uses him and likes him a lot. We were talking about him. He actually seems to be fairly underrated overall by the community. He's really good. His passive here, he has a 50% chance of granting a rally, so if you combine him with the rally team, which I still need to play around with rally teams, he's going to be really good. He gets launches 2 attack with the 300% radiant damage, 50% chance for him to gain the rally, and he gets a recharge the hero's ultimate energy by 20% on a battle skill, so he can some ultimate quite a bit, which that's very underrated, especially in PvP. I think that's an amazing move, definitely worth checking out. And then this one, which is another thing that I like with him, is jumping to the target area, so you can kind of control him to attack those back lines, especially in those PvE waves where you're having issues in Feywilds and stuff, and you start getting the damage dealers in the back that you just can't get to before they kill you with their ultimates. Someone like Hegio here is going to jump back there and wipe them out for you, so this is a very good move right here. Don't overlook that. He's going to be a good champion to be using. And then Kamari here is pretty good. He's got a revive. Personally, I think a super underrated epic in this category is going to be Clovis here. I used him quite a bit in the last season, and he's really good for a few reasons. One, we get this defense aura by 24%. This is where he gets to be really good. He gets a stack of persistence for each enemy nearby up to 3 stacks, which is defense up by 10%. So he can get up to a 30% increased defense. Also, his attacks are all based on defense. So he's increasing his damage and increasing his survivability the more people who are around him. To combine with that, he has a taunt. So for waves, you can taunt your enemies, and during this you get a defense up 2. You taunt them, pull them in, get defense up 2, and get 3 stacks of persistence. You pretty much make this guy unkillable. But why he's underrated is going to be this A3 here. This is actually really good even for bosses. And last season I used him in Grave of Rot to help control my timing of my skills. So he has a reducing the ultimate by 20% with 100% of attack penalty 2. So this guy's absolutely amazing. You get that attack penalty 2, you keep the damage down, and you can control an ultimate. During season 0, when I was having some issues with Grave of Rot, I actually brought him in as my tank. And what he did was, with this ultimate down, is he made it to where I could time my skills so I could keep my healing prohibition up, and I can get my heals going off in order to keep up with the boss and beat him on stage 8. So Clovis here, I think, is a underrated epic. If you have him, don't ignore this kit. This guy's really amazing depending on how you're using him. Highly recommend him. Going into the rares here, the only notable rare, and I think at some point you're going to build him if this is your first season playing, is Quarion here. Don't overlook this guy. His A3, we get this target max HP heal. It goes up to 25% when he's booked with the defense up. This is an amazing skill. Good heals and that defense up is just a really great combo. Definitely a good champion here. He gets his passive where he gets a 20% chance of increasing the healing by 50%. When this lands, it is really good. However, it's only 20%, so it's not going to land a lot, but this is a really good heal just for that. And then he gets a recovery over time on one ally with the max HP heal, so he's a single target, really good. It's really, really good for Grave of Venom if you're trying to keep your single target tank alive. And then there's actually a common to mention in here, and that is Meredith here. So getting into Meredith, I used her in season 0. I used her and Quarion combined as healers in Grave of Venom. Her A3 here is a max HP heal, flat 25% of their max HP. When you're doing Grave of Venom and you're building a tank for like stage 8 and 9, you're getting them up to like 100k HP. So this is like a 25,000 heal for your tank in there. So combine her with Quarion, and then she also has this A2 single target heal, and the Quarion's defense up with his heal. Like, she's an amazing healer for that dungeon, and she's gonna work in other places for you too. Overall, if you haven't pulled someone like Catherine or any of the OP legendary healers, I think for especially City of Trials, you're going to be combining Meredith and Quarion to keep your team alive. So really good champions there. Now moving on into our lightning heroes here. I want to start with Shargorl, Dauntless Hero. He's good at PvE and PvP. If you combine him with other Dauntless characters, he's super amazing. But his A3, you can target him into the back lines. He's great for taking out enemies that you need to make sure are dead before their ultimates go off. His A2 is also a leap attack. It's just that you can't control it. He does that one on his own. And his basic attacks have 25% chance to attack twice. So this guy is laying out really good damage. He also has an attack speed aura. He's great. Dauntless characters are really amazing. Highly recommend building a Dauntless team if you have the characters to do it. You can combine him and any of these other Dauntless epics, and you're going to have a really good team with them. The next notable one I want to mention is Iola here. I used her quite a bit during Season 0 as well. She has an attack aura in all battles, which is really good, especially being in all battles by 24%. Her A1 has a silent and a stun. This is great when you're going through, this is a passive skill. when she's attacking, but this is great when you're going into PvE and you're trying to get some control because she has an AoE hit on her A3, so combine that with here and you get some debuff staying out pretty good. Her A2 is that she has the 50% chance of inflicting silence, so you're increasing the odds with this passive here. And then the A3 has another silence on it, but she's really good because her A3 has this attack penalty 2 on AoE. So being on AoE, this is amazing, and this strikes 3 times, so you get those extra chances of letting this attack penalty 2 down. On top of that, this girl actually hits pretty hard, so if you have her, she's definitely worth building. Now for this one, I wouldn't say she's a must build, but she's fun to play with, and if you have her, you're trying to build a lightning team, it's a good option to consider. On a secondary note, won't get too far into her, but Lydia here makes a great tank. You should check out her kit if you're looking for a tank for this team. I used her a little bit in Season 0. She worked for me. And the rares here, they actually have a few notable rares. Anna, for starters, very notable. If you need a cleanser, she does a Dispel 1 debuff. This works great, especially in Feywilds where poison is the only debuff being laid down and you're needing to get it off. You can combine her and Grave of Rot with some other characters to help your survivability. When she does that, she also does recovery over time. I think that she's going to definitely be useful to build up. If you don't have any healers for your Dauntless team, that's going to be a good healer for your City of Trials. Your other character here that's super notable is going to be Irina. If it is your first season and you don't have any really good epics, I would say definitely build up Irina. Iola, the last character I showed, has a kind of similar kit. The difference is Irina being rare is a lot easier to get her skill scrolled out, but her A3 has an AoE attack penalty 2, and you just can't underrate that. That's really good, and she has a chance to Dispel 1 buff, so you're also adding that in there. Yeah, I would say you definitely can't overrate this character. She just got an amazing kit. She actually hits really hard. If you need a damage dealer, what you could do is you could build Irina, set her all damage, don't even worry about lending her skills, just make her nuke the enemies, and then when you get into later game, you switch her into her support role, build up her accuracy for that attack penalty 2, and you can use her the entire season. So she's definitely one that you don't want to overlook. The other ones, I don't think there's anyone who's too super notable. I'm sure there's some other good champions that I'm overlooking. Like I said, I can't rate everyone. I'm just showing off my favorites, but some good champions in here. Now going into the poison, this one, there's a few pretty notable ones. I'm going to start with Ferrerbath here. Absolutely amazing healer. You guys have seen him in pretty much every video I do because I use him in a whole lot of teams. He's one that I think is a must build. If you get him, you should have some scrolls saved up just for him, and when you get him, scroll him out and start using him. His heal on his A2 with that Nexus is absolutely amazing. He gets this attack penalty down, which is good for any boss, so you're getting great heals and you're getting great damage reduction. He has an aura for defense up by 24% in battles, so if you don't have a good aura, he's someone who can also take that role. Now, say if you got some legendaries, you probably have a better aura, but he's got a good aura, amazing heals, and attack penalty down to save some scrolls for this guy. Guys, if you get him, just build him up, use him, you're not going to regret it. My next character in here I want to talk is currently my favorite one to play around with, and that is Vikuk here. I'm using him in a lot of areas. So a few things with this guy. When it comes to his A3, he has a decent heal that has the potential to be the best heal in the game. So what I'm getting at with this is his heal, he has a 15% target HP. When you scroll him out, this is going to become a 30% target HP heal, which is a really good heal in and of itself. Now, if you compare him to someone like Catherine from the Radiant, or even Hexandra from this one, with them scrolled out on the base level, those do better heals. However, with this guy here, if you dispel debuffs, you get an increased 25% healing for each one dispelled. So you go in, it's just for dispelling the one, so you're getting extra 25%. So if you dispel a debuff, you're increasing his heal, and it makes him a better healer than all of those other healers just for having dispelled the debuff. So with him, you get a decent heal, but if you dispel debuffs, you get an amazing heal. I use him in my Grave of Rot team right now, and if you've seen the video on that, you'll see he does some insane work in there keeping the team alive. There's absolutely no reason to build resistance on your team if you have him. However, if you don't have him, you need a team that has resistance to avoid all of that. So really, any dungeon that you need healing, he's good in, but any dungeon that you need debuffs taken off of you, he's the best. He has an attack penalty down on the 8-2. This is always great in boss battles if you can get the accuracy on him. For the most part, I haven't really built him with the accuracy I need because I just don't have the gear yet that I need for that, but I already have a build in mind when I get to it that's going to make this super effective in my bosses. And then his passive here is when he's inflicted with a debuff, he has a 100% chance of doing an accuracy penalty down on the enemy. So he's really good because you don't really need to worry about resistance, especially with him being able to dispel debuffs. Build him with low resistance, and then if you have a team with decent amount of resistance, he does that accuracy penalty down on the boss, and then they're landing even less on your team. So he's super helpful in keeping your team alive. Another character in here I want to mention is Etchis, another clanmate of mine. When I asked them about who they think is some underrated champion, mentioned her. I do see her in a lot of Grave of Rot teams, especially from this A2 with the healing prohibition. I haven't used her a lot, but I recommend you guys check out her kit. I do see her used a lot. Her A3 has this recharge speed penalty, and then dispels a debuff from allies. That I think is definitely underrated by a lot of players. The recharge speed penalty is absolutely amazing when speed tuning teams, as I've said about other characters who have it. So if you're looking for someone to build up in fire poison and you have her, you should look into how you can slot her into the team. When you're doing waves, that charmed really helps you take care of waves because you put them under the charmed and then the enemy's helping you do the work for you. That's it for the epics. Coming down into the rares in this category, everyone already knows about Sigrid. She's a new rare, this one. All the content creators have been talking about her, so I'm not going to go too much into her, but she's a must build. You're going to need her for a lot of content. Another must build, in my opinion, is Exandra here. She has an amazing heal. Once you book this out, you get another 30%, so 50% max HP heal. Yeah, she's just absolutely amazing healer. And then she also has a cleanse on her A2 for a single target cleanse, which depending on your team setup is really good. Last season in my Grave of Rot team, I built everyone with really good resistance except for my DPS unit, and then I would throw Hexandra in there. So whenever she would use her A2 to heal, she would heal my DPS unit and she would cleanse them, so I didn't have to have the resistance on them, so I could focus more on their attack. So she's really good, especially in a niche situation with her A2 like that. Definitely think she's a must build. Eli here is a pretty good damage dealer for a rare, so if you're looking for damage dealers and you have him, for your poison team, he's definitely worth using. And with that being said, that is all of the factions, all of my more used and more favorite champions. Guys, there's a lot of champions in this game. Please let me know the ones that we're all underrating in the comments so I can try them out. I really appreciate you listening to this video. Hope it helps some of you out. Y'all have a good day.